The film opens in the icy waters of the Antarctic Ocean during winter. A massive ship lies stranded amid the frozen sea. The ship's captain, Anderson, has already tasked his men with freeing the ship from the ice. His commander tells him that they can't work too fast, or his men could be harmed. But Anderson insists that no matter how they work, they must reach the North Pole as quickly as possible. Their mission. Night falls as the ship's efforts to free the ship from the ice continue. Anderson is informed by his men that a blast has occurred not far from here. Anderson and his men go there and find a broken ice sledge, pulled by dogs or wolves. When they look around, they see a lot of blood, but all the dogs are safe. They look a little further and find an injured man named Victor Frankenstein, writhing in pain. In fact, he's very badly injured. They ask him what's wrong and to explain. Before anyone can understand, a terrifying monster appears. It looks like a human, but much larger. Its body is rotten, its skin is gone, and it's extremely angry. Anderson takes Victor to the ship, but the monster attacks the ship. It starts killing the people there one by one, telling everyone that Victor is its prey and that they should hand him over to Victor. But no one listens, and they continue attacking him. He was killing everyone with ease, and bullets had no effect on him, when suddenly a man shot him with a large gun, causing him to fall under the ship. He quickly healed himself and began climbing back onto the ship, but by then, everyone had pulled up the ladder. The monster began pushing the ship itself, and you'll remember it was trapped under the ice. But even then, the monster was so powerful that it began to overturn it, and the ice began to break. Anderson fired bullets at the frozen ice from above, and the ice had already shattered. It then completely shattered, causing the monster to fall into the water. Anderson and his men breathed a sigh of relief and began treating Victor, who also had a prosthetic leg. Well, after a while, he regains consciousness and asks Anderson how many people the monster has killed. He tells him 6. Victor says he'll come back and kill everyone until he gets Victor back. Anderson is shocked, and Victor begins to tell him his story, which begins the first part of Victor's tale. Victor's father, Leopold, was a renowned surgeon who married a woman named Claire because she was wealthy and had a large dowry. They had a son, whom they named Victor. Leopold was often out of town, but whenever he came home, the house ran at his behest. He was a very abusive, strict, and stubborn man, whom Claire feared greatly. Claire was pregnant with their second child, but he still didn't pay much attention to her. Instead, his focus was solely on Victor, whom he wanted to make a surgeon. He was constantly teaching human anatomy. Victor was under immense pressure to learn everything, because if he didn't learn something, he would beat him, not on his hands, which would be useful in surgery, but on his face. One day, Claire gives birth to their second child, and she dies as soon as the child is born. This leaves Victor devastated, who struggles to pull himself together. His father, Leopold, names his second son William, and he loved William very much. One day, Victor tells Leopold that he was treating Claire, yet she was killed. He replies that no one has control over death. Victor then declares that if that's the case, he will now learn everything medical science has to offer and become the best surgeon possible, capable of defeating death itself. He can even resurrect the dead. Victor is reborn. He finds a purpose, and for the first time, he sees a vision in which he sees a dark angel, and that dark angel tells Victor that he will become a greater surgeon than his father, the world's greatest surgeon. He will rule over life and death. Time passes, and Claire's garden, which used to provide the Frankenstein family with income, catches fire. Disputes arise, resulting in significant losses for the Victor family, leaving them with only the mansion. Victor sent his brother, William, to his relatives and set out to complete his studies. Years and decades passed, and Victor continued his hard work. In 1855, he faced a case before the Royal College of Medicine Disciplinary Tribunal. He used half the body of a dead man to attach another man's hand to it, bringing him back to life. Once alive, the corpse could move its hand. In fact, it could hear Victor's words and even act like a human being. Now everyone calls this a sin because it was against God's creation and his rules. But Victor says that if their God cannot bring the dead back to life, then he will never believe in such a God. Everyone is furious with him, and he is suspended from the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. He is furious about this when he meets a man named Henry Harlander, who witnessed his entire demonstration in court. Harlander reveals that he is an arms merchant and has just arrived with a letter from William. William is about to be engaged to Elizabeth, one of Harlander's nieces. 3 days later, Victor goes to Harlander's house, where he tells him directly that he was a surgeon in the army himself and that he carefully observed Victor's entire demonstration, which is why he now understands that he can bring the dead back to life. But he's only flowing energy into the nervous system, and it lasts for a short time. This means that the corpse he's bringing to life won't survive for long. This was a shortcut. He then shows him an experiment in which human body parts were disassembled and placed on wooden plates. These plates are the human lymphatic system, which has very little blood flow within the human body, but can store energy and has the capability to use it repeatedly, a capability Victor hadn't imagined. Harlander says he'll provide Victor with whatever resources he needs. He just wants his experiment to succeed, and he doesn't want anything in return. A little while later, Victor meets William and talks to his future wife, Elizabeth. Elizabeth's perspective on things was quite different, and she spoke to Victor for a bit, impressing him. Well, the next day, Harlander takes him inside an abundant tower, where he tells him to build his lab, and Harlander will have his factory workers build whatever he needs. William will also assist Victor here, and one day, Victor set out to find a body for his experiment. Harlander had also obtained permission to use the body of a prisoner executed by hanging. Meanwhile, Victor sees Elizabeth going to the church where she had come for confession, and Victor becomes curious about what sin she might have committed that she wanted to confess. He sneaks into Father's cabin, and Elizabeth comes to confess. She begins to confess that she hates Victor, who is a very arrogant person and always has his way. Victor is deeply offended by this, and he pulls back the curtain to look at her, causing her to become hesitant. Elizabeth leaves, and he follows her, and she talks to him. She reveals a little about herself, saying she has an interest in insects because they are of a different structure. She's a huge fan of science and is searching for a miracle, but she hasn't yet found the greatest miracle of science. Now, coming back to the present, we see the monster, now completely healed, emerge from the water and approach the ship. This means it possessed healing abilities and strong powers. Anderson's men tell him that the monster is about to attack again. So Anderson's men demands that Victor be handed over to them, but Anderson refuses, saying he will save Victor at any cost. The story then flashes back to the past, where Victor has found a corpse and resumes his work. Meanwhile, he spends some time with Elizabeth and begins to fall in love with her. Meanwhile, his experiment is complete, but he's unable to revive the body. Harlander now tells him that he must finish the job as quickly as possible, as a lot of time has passed and his funds are running out. Victor becomes worried about how he will revive the body in a week. Meanwhile, he confesses his feelings to Elizabeth, but she flatly refuses. However, his refusal was a compulsion because she was his younger brother's fiancée, and he was grieving over it. Victor also becomes increasingly troubled because, while he once loved Elizabeth, she wasn't with him anymore. The experiment wasn't going well. As he meditates, he realizes he's not properly supplying the body with the current, and when he changes its location, the body awakens. Finally, he figures out how to revive the body. A week later, when war breaks out, he brings back the bodies of many soldiers. He dissects various bodies, extracting the best parts, and then builds a single body. Finally, on a stormy day, he begins preparing to charge it with lightning. Victor and Harlander are present, while William and Elizabeth have left. Meanwhile, he discovers that Harlander has a fatal disease that is about to kill him, and he is conducting experiments so that Victor can revive him after his death. When Victor flatly refuses, he tempts him, promising him a lot of money. He will give him everything, and even Elizabeth will be his. But Victor flatly refuses, saying that his body has been rotted from within by the disease, and nothing can be done about him. He takes Victor's equipment to stop him, but in the ensuing scuffle, he falls from a height and is killed. Now, Victor sets up his system to charge the room's batteries with lightning to power the body, but the body doesn't come alive, and the experiment fails. Victor goes to his room and goes to sleep, He sees the same dark angel that had frightened him, and then he wakes up, and shockingly, he sees the same corpse that had stood before him. He is deeply shocked and happy, but this happiness will not last long, because he just needs to be brought back to life. He thought so. He has no idea what to do next. In fact, he has lost all sense of what to do next, and initially, this corpse has no emotions. Because he lacks thinking and understanding, he makes mistakes and hurts himself. However, he also heals. However, he is slowly trying to think things through on his own, but Victor notices his anger, so he keeps him tied up. One day, Elizabeth and William arrive, and Elizabeth sees the corpse, the very miracle she's been searching for. She spends some time with it and tries to understand it. The corpse's behavior is such that it emits a voice, and since Elizabeth is behaving well, it behaves well with her as well. She teaches it to speak, and it utters one word, Elizabeth, and another, Victor. One night, Victor tells Elizabeth that this corpse is useless. She replies that it's no longer a thing, that it now has life, and is more sacred than any human being. Hearing this, Victor's ego is hurt, and he begins to beat the corpse. However, the corpse begins to get angry, which frightens him greatly. You'll notice that Victor was behaving exactly like his father. The next day, Victor tells William the truth about Harlander's death and asks him to leave with Elizabeth forever. William takes Elizabeth and leaves, and Victor begins burning the tower to destroy the corpse. But the corpse begins calling out to him, forcing Victor to change his mind. He tries to return to the tower, but now the entire tower has exploded, and Victor lost his leg in the process. As you may recall, his leg was artificial in the beginning. That was the reason. By then, Elizabeth had returned after convincing William, but the entire tower had exploded, so nothing could be done. Coming back to the present, he arrives at the monster ship, which had come directly to Anderson's cabin, and tells him that he's heard Victor's story. But now, he needs to hear the monster's side of the story. This is where the story of the corpse begins. The story of that monster, that creature, called the Crutcher Tail. So, Victor had already set the tower on fire. There was a blast, and the Crutcher was about to burn inside, but he had realized that he had to save himself. That is, his survival instinct had kicked in. Now, he tries to break his chains and, with all his might, frees himself. He was still tied up in the basement, from which a drain was flowing into the sea. So, he jumps into that drain. He was out of the tower. He had fallen into the water, but he survived. And now he moves on. He sees the skeletons of dead soldiers on the battlefield, and their clothes, which he picks up and puts on. He puts them on because he saw other people wearing clothes. He moves on, and sees animals, and they don't bother him, so he neither bothers them, nor is afraid of them. Now he picks fruit and eats it because he has a body, and feels the need for strength. Meanwhile, some people start shooting at him, and he runs away in fear and hides in a slum. He hides in a shed from where he can watch for outsiders. This shed was abundant. Living here, he learns many things from observing the outsiders. He learns how they live, how they speak. He learns words, what they call words, and all that. Gradually, living among these people, he learns a lot. Here, he sees the old man who used to teach a little girl, and this creature is also learning along with the girl. So, he lives here and starts living like them. He used to live in hiding, but at night, he also does things to help them secretly. Sometimes he would repair something. Sometimes he would clean clothes. Sometimes he would bring something. Sometimes something else. And he did all this without anyone noticing. One day, wolves attacked the settlement and began to eat the sheep, but humans killed them, scaring them away. This made him understand life better. Wolves are not the sheep's enemies. Humans are not the wolves' enemies. But fate is inevitable. And if someone is to live, someone must die. And that is called survival. As a result, he learned the survival instinct. One night, he gathered the courage to confront the old man. But this old man was blind, and he wasn't afraid of the creature at all. Instead, he pointed out the kindness within him, and even though he couldn't speak yet, the old man noticed him and told him he would be his friend. Now the creature was very scared, but the old man tells him not to be afraid, but to be happy. And this realization gives the creature a new feeling. a new emotion. Now he had awakened from his body, and now he begins to awaken from his consciousness. The old man tells him stories, teaches him to read, tells him about life, and that's how the creature learned to speak, learned to know humans. He also became curious about who he was. He had no memories. There were only a few things, fragments, in the name of memory, within which he saw various dismembered people, and this was because he was made from such body parts. Well, now he sees fire and water, and sees only sand beneath his feet. He goes back to the tower where he went to learn about himself, and discovers the truth. He is just a form of death, and he returns saddened by this. Now, the creature had indeed gotten Victor's address from the tower. He returns and finds the old man alone, attacked by wolves. That creature kills those wolves. However, the old man, badly injured, is now beginning to die. In his final moments, they converse, and Crutcher declares that he is nothing but a pile of garbage strung together by various corpses. The old man replies, "No, that's not the case. He's a good man and a friend of the old man with whom he died." For the first time, the creature had found someone close, but now he was gone. Meanwhile, the rest of the settlement arrives, mistaking him for the monster and attacking him, believing he must have killed the old man. Well, here the creature starts dying, but after a while, he awakens, filled with grief and anger. At the same time, he was looking for Victor to give him a companion, something he didn't want. Currently, Victor is living with William and begins experiencing nightmares from the Dark Angel, who now appears to him as Death, because, according to Victor, he gave birth to and created Death. William takes care of him, and now his and Elizabeth's wedding day has arrived. Victor goes to talk to Elizabeth one last time, but he knows a core within her. She hates him because he can never think of anyone else but himself. As he approaches her, she slaps him and chases him away. He angrily returns to his room, where Crutcher has arrived and is waiting for him. He asks Victor to create a companion for him, but in his pride and anger, Victor says that he is a monster and will not create another monster. Crutcher says he can't die, and being alone is painful, so he needs a companion. But Victor says, what would happen with a companion? They would have a child together, get married, and create an army of monsters, which deeply saddens Victor. He comes to attack Victor, and upon hearing the attack, Elizabeth arrives, overjoyed to see the creature, loving him because it was a pure human being. Victor then shoots Crutcher, but Elizabeth intervenes to save him, only to be shot. By then, William and some others enter the room and attack him, but Crutcher beats them. Elizabeth asks the creature to take her with him, and Victor sees that William is dying. Now William speaks to his brother for the last time and says that he has always feared Victor, his anger and madness, and that the real monster here is not Crutcher, but Victor himself, just as their father was. Now, the creature brings Elizabeth to a cave. Before dying, Elizabeth tells him that she's been searching for him all her life. It was something she couldn't explain, and today, he's right there, in front of her. This was true love, and today, she's found him, in whose arms she's dying. She's killed, and Victor arrives, trying to kill Crutcher, but the creature says that he will not be able to kill him. Finally, now he gives him a purpose in life. Kill him before he kills him. From here, a race begins, with Victor evading Crutcher, who keeps coming at him with the intention of killing him. Similarly, they both came to the ship, and here too, Victor failed to kill him. The story now returns to the ship, where Victor finally apologizes to Crutcher, placing his hand on Crutcher's head and calling him his son. Crutcher had learned the greatest lesson from the old man, that we must forgive. Today, the creature forgives Victor, and Victor, counting his last breaths, finally accepts that he was the monster who created a human. Victor is killed, and the creature departs, knowing he must live. And Victor had said he must learn to live from here. He lacks purpose, but his life now has purpose. The creature descends from the ship, and the people who feared him look at him with pity and kindness. He follows the ship and pushes it out to sea so they can reach their destination, completing their mission. Anderson had to continue his mission first, but now he has a purpose: to do good. So he decides to return home with everyone, ensuring everyone's safety. With this new purpose, the creature, lost within the world, sets out to reclaim it. And the movie ends here. I hope you liked this movie explain video. If you want to see more similar movie explain videos, then you can watch this video by clicking here. Now I go and see you in the next video.